the Wall Street Business Network.
Are you one of the 9 million Floridians living in a community managed by a property manager or HOA? If you've ever wondered what your rights are as a resident or what your role is as a volunteer board member, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Condo Coaches, your resource for when your gated community starts to feel more like you're stuck behind bars, or when that guy next door decides that a hot pink Chevy on cinder blocks really sets the tone for the neighborhood. The Condo Coaches is brought to you by lmfunding.com. Find the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. And now your host, Johnny Torres.
Hi, everybody. We're back. It's the Condo Coaches radio show from whenever, wherever you may be listening. Thank you so much for listening to us every single week. I mean, I watch all the analytics on our website and our social media channels. The numbers just keep climbing and climbing week after week. Thank you so much. If this is your first time listening, the Condo Coaches are a team of volunteers, and we use our expertise here to help guide you through the adventures of living under a community or neighborhood association, or if you are serving as a board member on your community or homeowner association. We are here to provide our expertise to help you navigate those waters effectively, efficiently, and on budget. And we bring in experts every single week to help us with a different topic, a different issue. And this week is no different. But first of all, let me introduce who is joining us on the show today. Head coach Dean Akers. How you doing, buddy?
Johnny, I'm doing awesome. Another crazy week.
I bet. Was the phone ringing off the hook this weekend?
The phone's ringing off the hook, but when we get going today, it's the common denominator for the phone ringing off the hook is really compelling on communication. We'll probably brief, and then we of course have Chris here talking about pavement and stuff, but
right.
It's just crazy the amount of information we have. And the Condo Coaches we're looking at setting up. We've just submitted to the state of Florida continuing education curriculum.
Excellent.
So that we can help people get their CEUs for property management and stuff. But
beautiful,
a lot of cool stuff happening.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's just, I love watching the emails, messages that come in through our website, through social media, because it's never a dull moment out there in the association land. And so today is no different. But first, let me also introduce our guest for today's show. Chris Evers is a paving and road expert, so we're here to talk about the paving and roads in your community, in your neighborhood. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing wonderful, and actually today I'm going to be a paving coach.
Paving coach, that's right.
I don't know if I have the coach voice like he has. Doesn't he? He sounds like a coach.
Oh, no, it's beautiful. Like, I could picture him, like if I were playing some sport, like yelling at me from the sideline, and telling me to, run faster or
it really
hit
sounds
harder.
Like that. So I've got to work on my coaching voice. I'm going to work on that today.
I'm actually in the process of getting him a fedora, going for the whole Lombardi thing.
I like that a lot. Yeah. Tom Landry, fedora.
Exactly,
kind of
right?
Yeah.
The good old days.
Exactly. I'm cool with that.
You're going to die when I wear one next week.
There you go.
I
would
wait.
love it. All right. So, we want to open up the show as we do every single week with the emails, messages, phone calls that we get from people who listen to the Condo Coaches. And I want to open up one with a fun one because there's never a dull moment in a community association. And this one comes to us from Pinellas County. It's from Vicky. I'll preserve the name of the community for anonymity here, but she lives in a 55 plus community right not far from here in Dunedin. For those of you listening, we originate the show out of Tampa Bay, broadcasted statewide. But Vicky tells us she has a new treasurer, and he happened to discover their bingo. I guess they got a weekly bingo game that happens. It's run by a resident who also works at the property management company. Wow. Okay. And he was not doing a financial report, and they suspect he might be pocketing the money, and also has no license to do said bingo, which is also open to the public. So it's not even just a residential thing. There's so many pieces to that.
Well, there's a lot of pieces, but the actual bingo laws, again, this is a coaching thing, not a lawyer thing.
Yeah.
But the actual bingo laws, state of Florida bingo laws, isolates condominiums, HOAs, timeshares, and mobile home parks that they can do bingo. So they can do bingo.
Okay.
So they don't need a license as a condominium and stuff.
Because it's a community activity.
However, any proceeds after prizes and direct costs should be given to a 501c nonprofit, a designated charity.
Interesting. Okay.
And
so that's kind of the loophole there?
Well, yeah, and I don't think the property manager on the site is considered
No.
501c.
But he's filing for one right now.
Yeah, he's
Right,
filing
yeah.
for it.
We don't know. Maybe he has like
Maybe
6 kids at home.
That would qualify him. But I think the thing is anytime you do anything that's involving cash,
Yeah.
you should have good cash controls. A bingo game, there's nothing wrong with giving all the money back to the players. There's nothing wrong with giving it to a charity. If it's go ahead.
No, I was going to say, or maybe I don't know, maybe the money goes to the prizes, which they then win in return. I don't know. I mean, or
here's what the money does in that clause of the law. And again, I would tell them to get their general counsel to do the lawyer side.
Yeah.
But the provision allows for them to have the bingo games for fun,
Okay.
to charge money, to use that money for prizes and the expenses of the game if they always have some expenses, and then the extra money they can designate to
donate it to a local charity.
Yeah, but they've got to name the charity, not just the property manager.
But apparently nobody had any idea this was going on.
Doesn't sound like it, or it sounds like everybody knew about the bingo game. I don't know that anybody determined what the accountability was.
Where the money was going in.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And before I'd be accusatory, I would sit there and go back and say, like you and I've always said, where everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah.
Nobody's entitled to their own facts. So just go back and say, hey, give us the accounting for the last 3 bingo games.
So I would say the bingo game itself is not an issue, but the fact that he also works for the property management company is, right?
No, because you could have that guy facilitate it.
Okay.
No,
All right.
the issue is if somebody's running it and taking and using the guise of a condominium association for bingo,
Right.
and then taking the money.
If he is pocketing the money, then that becomes the issue.
That's the issue.
Okay, got it. So the rest isn't a big deal
No,
as long as the money's accounted for somewhere.
correct.
Okay. All right. So great question, Vicky. Certainly something that you hope doesn't happen in another community, but hey, maybe it is going on. Again, if you want to send us your issue, your question, you can do that a number of ways. One of them is visiting our website, thecondocoaches.com, thecondocoaches.com. Again, great website there where you can also watch previous episodes. You can also check out our blog posts and, of course, send us your questions. Second is via email. Email is also a great way to get a hold of us, because we can forward that email to put you in touch with the right coach depending on your situation. Our email address is help@thecondocoaches.com. That's help@thecondocoaches.com, because that's what we love to do around here. And finally is our phone number. Also a great way to get a hold of us from anywhere in the United States. But again, we are primarily focused on Florida for now. Hopefully, eventually, we'll start to branch out across the country. But if you do have a question that you think might not pertain strictly to Florida laws and statutes, feel free to give us a call. And that's 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415. Because again, all this stuff kind of goes back to, well, what's the law and what's permissible by law. And so that's going to vary from state to state, which is why we're not really able to help a lot of people outside of the state of Florida. But if you're in Florida, send them in. Send in those questions. And, what's interesting is, and I know we're actually going to talk more about roads and stuff like that, but we actually got a question that's kind of in the ballpark, in your ballpark, Chris. This comes from Marty, and 410. I have no idea where that is, but anyhow, so Marty sends us an email here. He's saying they're having an extensive concrete restoration of the building and limited common element balconies. They're assessing for the project, but the costs of removing and reinstalling the hurricane shutters are being charged to the unit homeowners since not everybody has them. Can you require that the homeowners pay for that work?
Again, general counsel, because we're not attorneys, but from a coaching standpoint and getting feedback from folks, depends on your condo deck, and they need to go back and get with their attorney. But most of the time, hurricane shutters and a lot of the condominiums are not a common element. They're an element that somebody has petitioned to allow to put on their
belongs to
particular
that unit, right?
Yeah. In that case, they're responsible for the handling of that. So if they have to restore the building, they're going to have to pay to take it on and off, not the condominium association.
Yeah, because those shutters are attached to that unit. It's not part of the common area.
Well, if it was put in by the association, so they had shutters on all of them,
On all the units.
then it'd be a common element.
Okay.
If they made it that way.
All right.
Most of the condominium associations we worked with, those hurricane shutters are the homeowner's individual choice, and they put them in at their own cost after they purchase the unit.
All right. Well, Marty, thank you so much. I think that does answer your question. So, Marty, thank you so much for sending that in. Let's see. We got one more question here. Eugenia from Miami, and Eugenia writes, thank you for the opportunity to bring up this issue concerning me. I'd like to know under what circumstances can the HOA force a tenant renting a unit to pay that unit directly to them? I don't think they have, just my opinion, but I don't. So in other words, the HOA is coming in and saying that the rent has to be paid to the HOA, not to the unit owner.
The only time that ever is applicable is, again, you want to get with your general counsel is if it's past due.
Okay.
If they're not past due on assessments, the association has no rights to those rents.
All right.
But association do have rights to the rents if the owner is past due on the association dues.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because again, I mean, if there's money's owed, that's where obviously then the HOA can step in and confront that, even that tenant, even if they are not the homeowner, and trying to recover some of those funds.
But they definitely want to go through legal counsel.
Right.
They want to do it properly. You can't just go bang on their door and say, hey, give me your money.
Because there's notices and all kinds of stuff that got to come into play.
Correct.
All right. So great questions. We got a couple more that I think we can knock off pretty quickly here in the next segment. But again, if you have an issue, a question for the Condo Coaches, send those in. help@thecondocoaches.com. help@thecondocoaches.com. You can also shoot us a phone call. Leave us a little message at 813-331-5415. 813-331-5415. Again, Chris Evers joining us, head coach Dean Akers. And the next segment, we'll get on today's topic, which is paving and the roads in your community. And so stick around for that. It's the Condo Coaches radio show coming to you from wherever you may be listening. Thank you so much. We'll be back. Segment 2 right after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
Life is full of bittersweet transitions. It's difficult to know how these changes will impact us over time. For some people, difficult transitions like retirement, divorce, or loss of a loved one can hit harder than expected and may contribute to feelings of hopelessness or even thoughts of suicide. The risk of suicide is even higher for men over 50 who served our country. Guys like me. That's why support from friends and family makes such a big difference. Every day, your actions could help save a life. Together, we got this. Learn how you can help save a life at veteranscrisisline.net.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thank you once again for listening. Segment 2 of the Condo Coaches radio show, streaming live right now at facebook.com/thecondocoaches, facebook.com/thecondocoaches. We typically record the show Mondays, 1 o'clock. If you do want to catch us live, send us some encouraging comments, or maybe you can ask a question there, and we'd be more than happy to answer it for you there as well. Again, you can send in those questions through our website as well, thecondocoaches.com, thecondocoaches.com. We are actually going through some of the questions we've received both through Facebook and through the email address, and we love doing that every single week. There was actually a couple more here that I wanted to knock out, if that's all right. We said this comes from Carol down in Palm Beach County, and she said she attended a meeting in Palm Beach at Leisureville this past winter, where she enjoyed your wonderful presentation, Mr. Dean Akers. And she said she'd like to send over the Condo Docs to determine whether or not they need to be updated. That, again, is something that, we'd be more than happy to take a look at. The Condo Coaches would love to do that. We do financial assessments, document assessments, insurance assessments. I mean, you name it. We have people who are willing to come to your community at no cost to your association, give you the, a second opinion on exactly the status or situation for your particular issue. And the way you do that is, again, emailing us, help@thecondocoaches.com, help@thecondocoaches.com, or you can call us 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415. Tell us a little bit about, I know that we had some condo coaches out in the field helping out some folks. How'd that go?
Well, we had this week, obviously we're going to reach back to her, let her know that we've got the documents she sent.
Good.
And our condo coaches look at. We had a condo coach request for insurance this week, which was real interesting. It was an 11th hour request. They were kind of panicked because they were being kind of jammed with this particular policy. And so one of our coaches came in, met with them, said, okay, have you shopped all the markets? And they said, oh, our agent has. They did some background research, and they found the agent had only shopped one market, which is where they already were.
Right.
And the market was the worst market.
Oh, geez.
And it's an 11th hour deal. It's just like it was a train wreck.
Yeah.
So they're actually meeting again this week to try to get them broader based and try to get them some kind of backstop coverage because they run out of coverage on the end of the month. So again, if you think something's wrong, don't wait till the 11th hour.
That's right.
Scream out, call the condo coaches. We'll get somebody out there. We're going to be able to help this association, but they should have called us a month ago.
Right. Yeah. And again, waiting till the last minute never helps anyone. It just exacerbates the problem, really.
Oh,
yeah. Last one here. This is from Betty reaching out to us via Facebook. And she goes, what are the consequences for not having quorum at the annual meeting and not meeting the quota within 90 days after the annual meeting? This is where you kind of start to get into receivership. I mean, is it kind of...
No, you don't get into receivership with this because you have a board. What ends up happening there, and it's unfortunate. I guess if you have your lawyer, there's probably a A plus B equals C type scenario.
Yeah.
When you don't meet quorum, you don't have a meeting.
Right.
Well, if you can't one of the big challenges for a lot of these HOAs and condominium associations is meeting quorum for their annual meeting to be able to have an annual meeting.
Right.
So if you can't meet quorum, you can't have an annual meeting. Somebody goes, well, what happens? Well, you didn't have an annual meeting. So
That's right.
Somebody tries to tempt it because there's other things. It's kind of sad that people pay all this money into an association and they're so apathetic that they won't actually come to an annual meeting.
Yeah.
There's not much you can do about it.
But wait until they have an issue, and then, of course, it's World War III, and they're all upset when they have really no grasp of what's actually happening in the community.
Right.
Is it seasonal? I mean, maybe if their community has seasonality to it, they should change when they have the annual meeting.
I was wondering that too. It may be the situation where, again, maybe the majority of that community is not there during that time of year.
Right.
Maybe they just need to shift their meeting calendar to meet, to make it easier for those folks to attend.
That would make sense. The ones I've seen are in the calendar year where 99% of the people are in the communities, and it's still apathetic.
Got it.
So that may be some isolated cases.
Right.
And people just need to get involved. And like you say, and then when here's the antithesis of this, because we had a call this week. We have a board that's been in place 7 or 8 years. They have their annual meeting. In fact, their annual meeting's coming up, but it's not a plus 55 community.
Okay.
These people want to be active, and the board and the property management firm have absolutely shut them out. Will not send them the financial information. Just will not do anything. It's like a huge communication issue. Now you'd say, well, Dean, you're just going on their side of the story. No, this particular individual has sent me a copy of all the correspondence. So now I can read it. And like I told her, she was right on certain things and wrong on other things. The condo coaches never have a dog in the fight, so to speak.
That's right.
So we're giving independent assessments that we really don't side with this or side with that. And this was a class example that we speak almost every week on the show of why in the world these property management firms and these boards will not provide financial information And oh, by the way, all the great property management firms out there, I know they provide a monthly package to everybody.
Be proactive about it. Yeah.
Just give it to the people.
Right.
I mean, there's just absolutely no downside to it.
Well, and back to the question that kind of originated this conversation, my suggestion would also be that just send out a quick survey, and that's something that we can do for them as well as with the condo coaches, but send out a quick survey to all the residents and say, hey, what time of year, what month, what day of the week, what hour of the day is best for everyone to turn up. And then you just go with the majority and again, hope that you hit quorum so you can have that annual meeting.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, we will do a survey. We'll do an electronic survey on behalf of the association. All they need to do is go to the condo coaches and request it, and then we need certain stuff which we maintain privacy with, but we need email addresses so we can send the electronic survey out.
All right. So now let's get to today's topic and today's guest. Again, our guest coach today is Chris Evers, tech representative for Pavement Technology Incorporated. And so we're going to talk community roads and paving and, of course, how to, again, one of those things that people don't realize that they're going to have to deal with when they take a position on these boards. And so, Chris, tell us a little bit about your background,
Sure.
how long you've kind of been in this world.
Absolutely.
And also, kind of where does the process start, for a community that may be having some paving issues?
Thank you for having me, by the way. And I think one of the things that we see is this is episode 27.
That's right.
And it's the first time we're talking about pavement. And that is a microcosm of how often communities think about their pavement. It's totally understandable. It's what people need to understand is it's probably one of the biggest fixed assets they have in their community. And it's like that in cities and counties and for the United States of America. So, but just to back up, I've been in this business for about 20 years. I've been in Florida since 2001. I actually got to experience the tail end of the election drama in 2000. So, and really my emphasis has always been on more the top of the curve preservation, is offering different strategies to take care of your pavements so that they don't get to really those end of life issues.
A point of deterioration where now it becomes inconvenient or uncomfortable for the people who live there.
Yeah, it'd be like pavement hospice.
Yeah.
When your pavement looks like it's about ready to die, that is a lot of times when people start to think about caring for their pavements. And
so there's stuff you could do to keep it.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
So I equate it to changing the oil in your vehicle.
All right.
And so a lot of times, a car salesman sells you a new car. They probably in this next breath explain, we have a wonderful service department. You need to change the oil on your brand new Corvette. And for every, what people should know is for every lane mile, meaning 1 12-foot lane mile of road, it's like buying a brand new Corvette. And then imagine just letting the Corvette sit in the driveway and, driving it and everything and
with
never changing the oil.
Yeah.
And just never changing the oil.
Right.
And then you don't look at doing anything to maintain the Corvette until the paint's flaking off and the tires are rotting and the engine's burned up by then.
Yeah, and at that point you might as well just look for a replacement.
Yeah, it's too late, and so that's not a good way to approach things. So that's what we really specialize in, and really our business had been more focused, I'd say 90% on public works agencies, so working with cities and counties and DOT and FAA and all that, and so I started seeing these statistics of 9.3 million people living in gated communities, and now I live in one.
Sure.
And I'm like, they're not paying, the requisite amount of attention to their pavements, and they're going to pay a bigger price, at the end.
Well, and I would say, we're going to have to take a break here in a second, but it's one of those things that you don't see truly the gradual deterioration until it's too late.
Absolutely.
Right. So
that's exactly what happens. And I mean, it's like a fire. You're going to call the fire department when there's a fire, but imagine if the fire took 20 years to develop into that 4-alarm fire.
Yeah.
But you're waiting, you don't see any problems with the pavement.
Until all of a sudden there's a
and then
gaping
you're
hole.
Like, yeah, and you get swallowed up by the hole. And then
Sure.
you get complaints.
All right. Well, we're going to keep talking roads, pavement here with Chris Evers, head coach, Dean Akers, the Condo Coaches radio show. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you've missed an episode, you can catch them on Facebook, YouTube, and our podcast version on iTunes, SoundCloud, Overcast, Stitcher, you name it. The Condo Coaches are out there. So look up the previous episodes. We'll be right back with segment 3 right here. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be right back after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
Thanks, Julie. And coming up next, is there rain in your weekend forecast? We'll find...
Hey,
Hi.
it's been a while. Great place and nice neighborhood. You must have a strong community association board.
Thanks. I guess so, but I don't pay any attention to that stuff.
Seriously? How do you know for sure the board and community manager are making the right decisions to protect your investment?
I don't, but what am I supposed to do?
You can get involved and connect with CAI.
CA what?
CAI, Community Associations Institute, they're a nonprofit group that has helped us build a great community. They have free resources for your association board, professional training for community managers, and helpful information for homeowners.
Thanks. I'll definitely do that.
Is the time and investment you have made in your home and community protected? Be a smart homeowner and visit CAI at responsiblecommunities.com.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thank you so much for listening. Again, you want to be a part of the show. Very easy. Few ways to do that. You can go to our website, thecondocoaches.com. That's thecondocoaches.com. We got a few forms on there you can fill out and to get your questions, your issues over to the Condo Coaches, and we'll help you solve those, and we'll get you headed in the right direction. You can also email us. Email, a great way to get in touch with us, and also we'll plug you right into the Condo Coach that's going to best help you resolve your issue. That email address is help@thecondocoaches.com, help@thecondocoaches.com. And last but certainly not least, if you want to hear Dean's lovely voice, feel free to give us a call at 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415. Now, when you do call, what really happens is you leave us a message, tell us how to get a hold of you, maybe a little bit of background on what your issue is, and again, we'll get you plugged in with the right person that's going to be able to help you with your issue or answer that question you might have. So those are the ways to get a hold of us. And also, don't forget, we've got these 4 amazing booklets on the website that you can get right now, absolutely free. They're incredibly valuable. We've got 2 more right now that are being reviewed for approval. So we're going to go to books 5 and 6 very, very shortly. But these books are absolutely free if you go to our website, thecondocoaches.com/playbook. thecondocoaches.com/playbook. And what happens when you go to thecondocoaches.com/playbook? You fill out a quick form, right? Just to let us know that you're a living, breathing human being. And then we just email these right back to you. They go right into your inbox, or you can download them right there off the website in a very easy to read PDF, which you can then print out if you'd like, or just read on your computer or mobile device or tablet. But these booklets are the top 10 things you need to know if you are a HOA or COA board member. Again, the top 10 things, most important things you need to know. A great starter, especially if it's your first time serving on the board. Collecting delinquent association fees. The second booklet, again, the lifeblood of your community. Collecting delinquent association fees is our second booklet. I would say easily the most important one. And then the third booklet, which again is kind of coming around, and speaking of annual meetings, the ABCs of holding elections. The ABCs of holding elections. So you can run an effective, efficient, and accurate election. We had an election monitor on in our previous show, and so you can find that in our YouTube or Facebook account if you want to watch that one on elections and understanding your community's finances. And again, this is probably the issue we hear the most about. People get these financial reports from their property management associations, their property management companies, and they typically don't have a good understanding of what those documents mean. Well, this is a great book that's going to help you walk through that process. And these books, again, absolutely free on our website when you go to thecondocoaches.com/playbook. thecondocoaches.com/playbook. Joining us again is Chris Evers, our roads and pavement coach for today's show. Head coach Dean Akers. We were just kind of laying the groundwork, if you will, no pun intended, for, again, how important it is to have an understanding of the process that your roads go through. And again, it's one of those things that you don't realize how often or how much it gets used. And of course, you don't see the deterioration process taking place, but it is there. It's subject to the elements. It's subject to the wear and tear, especially, again, in the part of town that I live in right now, lots of construction, both residential, commercial. And so there's construction traffic, there's residential traffic. And you were talking about, again, just kind of starting to introduce us to the maintenance process. And so if a community wants to come in, get an assessment of the state of their roads, the state of their streets and their community, what's the process like? What do they need to do?
Well, there's a couple things that they can do. Some of the larger communities have actual engineers, under contract to do some of that type of work. We're currently working in the Villages. It's a pretty large community, so they kind of have that under control, and they inventory their roads about every 3 years to determine the condition. And what you want to be able to understand is, what is the deterioration looking like on a 3-year basis?
So is that a good time frame? In other words,
it's a good time frame.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look every year, things don't look like they're changing very much.
Sure.
And certainly the deterioration is quite slow in the beginning. So if we use a 100-point scale. So that first 40% drop in the quality of a road happens over 75% of the life of the road. So you might be, 15 years in and the roads still look pretty good. They're bleached out, but they still look pretty good. And that next 40% drop, meaning to failure, happens in only 12% of the life of the pavement. So it just falls off a cliff.
Yeah.
And so what we, really preach is getting to the roads earlier rather than later. So if you can kind of change the oil, air quote, by doing something in the first 1 to 4 years, you're going to be well ahead of the game. And all these communities have a road reserve fund. So
well, and I love that analogy about the oil change because, again, I think it puts it in perspective that people understand. It's much easier to pay maybe for a $20 or $50, depending on the car you have, but it's much cheaper to pay for the oil change than it is to pay to replace the engine.
Exactly. And I equate it to people. The most common thing that you'll get, that boards will get complaints, is, other than you're doing something, to the road and it's interrupting me being able to get in and out, is you'll get that road's in perfectly good condition. Why are we doing anything to it?
Right.
That's the biggest battle. And so I use another analogy, and I'll say, you have a lovely smile. I heard you went to the dentist this morning. Are you going to brush your teeth tonight? And most of the time, people will say, yeah, I'm planning on brushing my teeth. Why? You could defer maintenance.
Yeah.
You work out of your house. You're on radio, although it's harder now with the cameras. But, and so, if you're not around people, the breath thing doesn't matter. So what we try to explain to people is, get out of that mindset of, this is a perfectly good road. Let's keep it in good condition. Let's preserve it.
It's no different than the landscaping.
No,
it's no different than the amenities in the community.
Absolutely.
They all need to be maintained.
Pool, all of these things. And it usually is the highest value asset that they have. So my community just spent, about $250,000 on their roads, and then to go in and rejuvenate the pavement, basically with the process that we did, it ended up being about $18,000, and that's going to extend the life of that pavement by about 20% or about 5 years.
Wow!
So it meant that when they looked at what the life cycle did in their road reserve, they were having to put $18,000 a year towards roads. With this treatment, meaning they spent more money, that went down to $13,000.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's actually saving them money. And that's what people always equate, well, we're spending more money on the roads. Yes, you are, but you are getting that return on investment.
Sure.
So,
well, and again, it becomes a much bigger problem down the road if they're having to replace the roads.
Absolutely.
Which is, again, also happening by my house.
Absolutely.
And now you're blocking out an entire lane.
Yes,
they're tearing out what's there and then having to lay it all back down.
And there's an environmental component to it as well. There's some sustainability. If we can get the pavement to last longer, we don't have the interruption, obviously, to traffic, but we also don't have the interruption environmentally speaking as well. And one of the biggest mistakes, and we can get to that later, but is also what folks are putting on their pavements. Oftentimes, what's being used is not environmentally friendly or sustainable. So,
Interesting. Now, is that changing, or is that currently not regulated in any way?
It's not, and in many states, it's a particular product is called coal tar sealant. And if you've been to the Publix or some of these, big box stores where they have that very black sealant on there, that's a coal tar product, and it's highly carcinogenic. And what happens is cities and counties don't use that product on their roads.
Yeah.
But condos or HOAs don't know about its, health and environmental issues. And so they're apt to say, well, let's paint it black. Let's fill the cracks, make it look pretty. And so when aesthetics is your primary issue, you'll go with that sealant that actually has a lot of major health concerns and environmental concerns. And so some states are outlawing that. Florida hasn't yet.
Okay, understood. And explain to me now, does any of this changes as we kind of start to dive deeper into the topic? Does any of it change between a homeowner association, right, and then what we also see a lot here in Florida, the CDDs?
Right, definitely.
And so, there's some communities that have CDDs, there's some communities that don't. And how does that change the dynamic of who gets to decide what happens with the roads?
A lot of it head coach would be able to answer, but from our perspective, what we see is the CDDs and the improvement districts are just much bigger, and so they tend to have a little better grasp on what needs to be done when. They might have an engineer on under contract, but the smaller HOAs and the condos typically don't. And so what ends up happening is somebody on the board used to be in the paving business back, in New Jersey, and so they recommend that this road needs to be resurfaced. Or a lot of times they'll say that road looks perfectly good because their perspective is coming from a state where the roads look really, really bad.
Yeah.
So we accept the fact that ours don't look that bad, so we don't need to do anything to them. When it actually would be a lot cheaper if they did something earlier.
Now, is it kind of just like everything else in terms of looking for the right vendor to do this work?
Yes.
That there are multiple companies out there that
Definitely.
should be vetted and get quotes from?
And Johnny, that's a great question. And when I explain to folks, I really urge them to look at the companies. First of all, if you can put out a bid that's going to, in essence, give you what you're looking for, obviously, but they're not experts at paving, so they don't really know what they're looking for. That's why they usually use an engineering firm or a property manager. But one of the big things is these contractors, who are they doing their work for? If they're working for cities and counties and DOT, if they're on the DOT approved list, they are bonding their work. And so those folks are going to be much more capable, more responsible as a rule.
And
it's not
knowledgeable.
always like that.
Right.
But if there's some folks, unfortunately, everybody's had a bad contractor. I think the quote goes something like, "You can't take the con out of contractor."
Oh, boy.
And so, it's a little joke there for the day. But the problem is that sometimes they prey on the least knowledgeable, folks, and
Right.
that oftentimes is the HOAs and the condos. And it's not to scare people; it's just to say it's important to vet, the contractors and make sure. And I tell people all the time, the low bid is not always the cheapest job.
That's
and
right.
Dean's probably seen this a ton of times.
Well, and I'm a big believer that you get what you pay for.
Absolutely.
More often than not, unfortunately.
Yes.
And so, again, one of the things that Condo Coaches can do for you is get you plugged in, right, to an
Absolutely.
expert that's going to be able to come out there, where it be an engineer or somebody else that's going to be able to come out there, look at your roads, and give you a second opinion as to exactly what direction you need to go in terms of your road's maintenance or replacement.
And oftentimes it just takes a few pictures. So
Okay.
it's
That's
that
good to know.
easy. It's just a matter of getting a hold of the condo coaches. They can certainly reach out to me, look at the picture of the pavement and say, okay, here's what we think's going on here.
All right, well, we're talking roads and pavements with Chris Evers, our road and paving coach for the day, head coach, Dean Akers. Again, you want to get plugged into the show. If you have a question for Chris, reach out to us. Email help@thecondocoaches.com, help@thecondocoaches.com, or 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415, or just go to our website, thecondocoaches.com. Final segment coming up right after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
It only takes a minute to find out if you may have prediabetes, and you can do it at doihaveprediabetes.org. But you're probably not going to. Nope. I'm sure you've got a perfectly good excuse. Kids, work. I get it. You're busy. So what better time than now? Let's begin. Raise one finger if you're a man. Ladies, none yet. Oh, count in your head if you're driving. Now, 3 more fingers for everyone over 60, 2 over 50, 1 over 40, 1 more if you're not physically active, another finger if anyone in your family has type 2 diabetes, another if you've got high blood pressure. If you're overweight, raise another finger, 2 if you're very overweight, and 3 if you're really overweight. You've just taken the world's first audio pre-diabetes test. And if you're holding up 5 or more fingers, visit doihaveprediabetes.org or talk to your doctor. There's no excuse because prediabetes can be reversed.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its pre-diabetes awareness partners.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Hey, thanks again for listening. If the roads, streets in your community are looking a little rough these days, got a few holes here and there, well, that's why we brought on to our show Chris Evers, our pavement and roads tech expert, our coach, guest coach for today. Head coach Dean Akers joining us as well. And of course, thank you so much for listening. Again, you want to get plugged into the show, run you real quick through the ways you can get a hold of us at thecondocoaches.com being one of them. Our website, thecondocoaches.com. Our email address, help@thecondocoaches.com, help@thecondocoaches.com. And last but not least, our phone number, 813-331-5415. 813-331-5415. Now, Chris, we talked a little bit offline here before we got back from the break, and as I mentioned earlier in the show, there's a lot of construction happening. It's not even volume, really. It's just the diversity of traffic that's happening in my area. So we've got a lot of construction traffic, both residential, commercial construction happening, and then, of course, you do have all your residential traffic that's your normal wear and tear. Does that change? I'm assuming it would change the timeline as to when you need to assess the quality and condition of the streets and roads in your community.
That's a great point. And what I would say, Johnny, is that if your community is still building out, you should be cognizant of the fact that you're going to have heavy trucks. Maybe they're bringing in, building materials. Things are happening. They're damaging, and also, for a certain amount of time, the developer is actually responsible for that infrastructure.
Right.
So what we primarily get questions on are more mature communities, and they likely have had the asphalt just deteriorate over time. The other big misconception is if we build a road properly, meaning we build it with the right strength, then what really is happening distress-wise is from the top down if it's been built properly. So it's mainly like not wearing sunscreen at the beach. These roads are just baking in the Florida sun, and they're just so tired and worn out, they start to crack, and we call it raveling, where the aggregate starts to come out, and the material looks more coarse.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the beginning stages of some failure. And so what then will happen is you'll start to get interconnected cracks, and you'll get what we call alligator cracking, and that will turn into a pothole, especially in the summer rains.
At that point, is it too late to kind of treat it, to preserve? Yeah.
We want to preserve it while it's in good condition. Just like putting sunscreen, everyone's seen that leathery, older gal at the beach who didn't use sunscreen.
Right.
So probably for her, sunscreen, it's a little late. So what we want to try to do is put the sunscreen on early, and in that 1 to 5 years is a good time to think about it. Now, what that means is that all the communities have the ability to implement a preservation strategy. Now, if the roads are already in bad condition, it may require that they mill up the existing bad asphalt and resurface, and then at that point, be proactive and put into your reserve studies, or ask your property manager or ask the condo coaches about implementing a preservation strategy from then on moving forward.
Well, and again, we do financial assessments for communities all across the state of Florida. For those listening and interested in one of those financial assessments, it's at no cost to your association. Just get a hold of us. But that's absolutely something that needs to be built in to that financial plan for your community.
Definitely. And you should look at that every 5 years. So if you overlay your roadways and you've had that big hit, you're obviously building reserves again. In that first 2 or 3 years since then, you preserve it, and then you preserve it again 5 years from then. And then you're extending the life with those two treatments as much as 10 years. So when you start doing the math on the reserve study, you'll be amazed that it's gone significantly down. You usually get 200 to 300% return on investment on a preservation strategy.
Now, Dean, because he opened up talking again about the handover process, and so if the developer builder hasn't done it in a while, in a number of years, what leverage does maybe the residents have to say, hey, before you guys hand this community over, we're going to need you to redo the roads? I mean, I'm assuming that's something that some builders do, some builders don't, or developers do and don't. I mean, what is...
Most of their handoffs are way before that issue happens. They're usually well covered. The builders, if they do their job, which they do in Florida, they're going to hand off good roads and good paving.
Because I've seen some where they'll build like half of it.
Right.
And so you've got that little bit, you got about an inch before the curbing.
Yep.
And then when the community's done, they'll come in and fill it in.
And I would say this was never a problem until the recession, because what that meant was typically the builder was going to be well out of there before the time went by where the roads were in bad shape.
Right.
But when that, really went south on them, it extended the amount of time that the communities were being built. And so that's where we started seeing it be an issue, where the developers are sitting there. They don't want to obviously invest that kind of money in the road, a second time.
Yeah, I mean, they went from being 1, maybe 2 years at most in a community to now being more 3 to 5.
Oh, even longer I've seen. So that's an issue. And so, but normally the people that we talk to really are coming from more mature communities. So now they've been in there and they're sitting there going, okay, what do we do? And so we just educate them on what does the road look like, and let's use the right treatment on the right road at the right time. And if we can get all those right, then we're in good shape.
Now, in terms of where the community begins and where it ends, I mean, again, how is that determined, and where can a board go and look at those documents to understand what they are and aren't responsible for? And
typically in Florida, and Dean can correct me, but I like to look at the gate. If it's a gated community, the gate is going to indicate. Now, there's going to be some, run up to the gate. So we just treated a community that had kind of some common area, but it was theirs, meaning right before the gate.
Mm-hmm.
But then typically, the gate in, it's definitely theirs.
Okay.
So it's just, that's almost, automatic.
Yeah. So, I mean, but again, is there a particular set of documents typically that's available to a board, for them to determine exactly what they are and aren't responsible for in terms of road maintenance?
Well, they're responsible for all the common elements.
Right.
So the question is the roadway a common element? In almost 100% of all the condominiums, the roadways inside are common elements. In most HOAs and the CDDs, the CDDs, the CDDs could be required to be part of the roadway, but the HOA via property taxes is paying into that. So it's kind of managed, but at the end of the day, in condominiums, if there's pavement in your condominium, you guys are going to be fixing it, doing everything.
Yeah,
that's true.
Well, and here, again, and I don't want to get too much into this topic, but I noticed, for example, in Texas, they use concrete more than they do use asphalt, I guess.
It's a great question. If it's a question, it's why do we use more asphalt?
Yeah, right.
I would say each state has got some differences as far as the, available materials. This is a big asphalt state. About 97% of the roadways, whether it's FDOT, interstate, all the way down to asphalt in the condos, are asphalt. And there's some advantages to each material, building material. The nice thing about asphalt is there's a lot of asphalt plants. It's readily available. Same thing with concrete, of course, too. What typically people are attracted to, meaning the developers when they build these communities, is cost and speed.
Right.
So what they really try to balance is, okay, what is the cost of us putting concrete in this community versus asphalt? Developers are obviously in it for profit. They need to make a profit, and so they typically will pick asphalt, concrete.
Well,
asphalt versus concrete.
Well, and concrete's much more delicate in terms of weather elements and that sort of thing. And
it's more expensive. You're laying it thicker, so there's certainly some issues with that. Now, concrete, is a fantastic building material. You don't see any asphalt bridges.
That's right.
So it definitely needs to be used out there. but it is typically used in higher volume, traffic conditions where you have a lot of heavy trucks because it has a lot of, it's a high strength material. So asphalt is a flexible pavement and concrete is a rigid pavement.
Gotcha.
And so they're just used in different areas.
Right. All right. Excellent. And then real quick, got about a minute left here. Have you done the math in terms of the cost savings or difference between maintaining your roads properly or just replacing them, down the road?
Right. Yeah. If you look at it, and I think we used this a little earlier, but we really look at kind of that 20% mark for a preservation treatment. You can extend the life of the pavement by about 20%. And for instance, what pavement technology does, and it's a specific type of treatment, it costs about 10%. So you're doubling your money in essence. Okay. The one thing that you'll see is that you have to, you don't have to be great to get started, but you got to get started to be great. Sure. Is the quote I like. And so you only have one window to preserve your pavement. And that's on the early side. You can't wait.
And I would think the maintenance window in terms of them kind of being in the way, right, in the community and that sort of thing is also significantly less than replacing.
Absolutely.
Replacing the road.
It's, some of the treatments out there, 15 minutes and they're returning traffic. Okay. And so whereas a road, if we're ripping it up, it's all day, multiple days, week. I mean, it can be very extensive disruption of traffic.
Well, Chris Evers, thank you so much for joining us. Our road and paving expert, head coach, Dean Akers. Thank you as always. Another Condo Coaches in the can. Thank you so much for listening.
You've been listening to the Condo Coaches, brought to you by lmfunding.com. Find us online at thecondocoaches.com and join us this same time next week as we help you navigate life in your managed community.